Hi, my name is Ruta, and I am the person who created Ruta Ka complementary therapies. And I decided this is opportunity for me to go on live and explain a little bit more about what I'm doing and why emotions and clearing the emotional charge from our bodies is very important if we wanted to change something in our lives. And before I do that, I'm going to take off my glasses because I can see there is a whole panorama reflecting. And like it gives the feeling of a cyborg. I was just watching Star Wars, so I think, don't want to look like a cyborg with my glasses on. So I want to talk about how emotional charge stays in our bodies from the experiences that we had in our lives and how that affects what we then attract in our lives. So to start that, we can talk about thing that, of course, everybody in our lives, we will have some events where we have some strong emotional experiences, bad, negative emotional experiences, and we have positive ones. We don't really need to deal with the positive experiences that much because that doesn't leave any scar and any kind of like a negative emotional residue. If we had positive emotions and positive associations and positive experiences with something in some aspect in our lives, for example, with our friendships when we were growing up, that means our vibration by programming from our childhood is probably going to be most likely positive. Now, the problem is that we also experience some negative emotions, but not so much emotions that are the problem, but the residue of incompleted trauma cycle. So anything that we experience, it has some certain vibration in us. And when we experience something good or bad, that kind of leaves a record on us in our field, in our auric field, in our energy field, and also in our physical body. It gets attached in our physical body. So the experiences that we had, especially when we were little, especially when we were children, probably up to 8 or 6 years old, because at that age we were not able to really rationalize and explain why things, unwanted things and bad things were happening to us. Many of us have experienced something called trauma, emotional trauma. And we had this experience and we never had the opportunity to really kind of live out and complete this trauma cycle. So trauma sounds like a strong word probably for many of us, but it's just a term that we use for something that we didn't really have emotional resources to deal with at the time. So emotional trauma, so anything can be traumatic, and depending from person to person, how we're going to deal with it or how this is going to leave this trace in us. So the experiences that we have experienced when we were little, or even repetitively later in our lives, has left the negative experiences, has left certain energy, certain energetic signature, and we kind of basically keeping it in our body, especially the things that we still get triggered on. So let's say right now we can recognize the patterns that we have stuck into our physical, emotional, and all bodies is if something happens in our lives and we get triggered. So we get triggered, that means something that, for example, my friend is late and I get this feeling of real irritation coming up when another person will be like, oh, well, it's just 5 minutes or just 10 minutes, not a big deal going to the shop. But if you feel that in aspect to any kind of like a behavior or a situation, you have this very strong emotional reaction, that would mean there is some incompleted trauma. And but I want to kind of like simplify it rather than using the terms like that. That means you have some emotional charge residue, which is in your field and it is not completed, it is not cleaned yet, and therefore you are attracting that situation in your life so that you would have a chance to do things differently and to clear that energy. So for example, like we want something in our life, but then we keep on facing the same problem. That also means, for example, let's say we want to be an actress, or we want to be some sort of performer, and then every single time we go for a gig or for what is it called, audition, we then have this huge fear, or something happens and we somehow sabotage it unconsciously. And what's happening, it means we don't really sabotage these things, but there is something in our energy. There are lots of layers of complexity that can go with it, but that means there is something in us that we might not be conscious about that is preventing us from getting that thing that we want, or preventing us getting that outcome that we want. So when we see that in certain situations we keep on getting the same negative result, that is a clear indication that there is something in our emotional body and our emotional field, in our subtle energy body, that is there, that has not been cleared, has not been completed, has not been resolved, and is calling our attention to that. So one of the things how to deal with it is, first step always is to become aware of it. And even if we say, well, of course, I want to get this audition, I want to get this role, or I want to get this gig, I consciously absolutely want and love it, but you somehow keep on not getting it. The first step into awareness is, okay, so it's not them, it's not the circumstances, it's not the people, it's not the unlucky day. It is something in my energy which I'm not yet aware that is doing this. So awareness is the first step. And then after that, we have number of choices. So I believe in taking responsibility, not for what has happened to you, but with what we're going to do with it. So taking responsibility for, okay, now we are the way we are, and we have these unresolved problems, we have these unresolved traumas, we have these unresolved patterns. And of course, we can talk about blaming our parents, blaming our school, blaming our teachers, and to some degree, we need to live that out as well. But, and there is nothing wrong, with having these feelings. But at the end of the day, at the end of the cycle, is to understand that, okay, so that happened then. And I have that in me. So what do I do now? Of course, some things take longer to heal because there is need for some parts within us for a time period or for certain situation to change, to make a decision to change. But most of us who really think that we know what we want, but we keep on not getting what we want for whatever the reason, it means that we probably are quite ready consciously, but unconsciously we are not. So when we go into our subconscious and we can reach that depth by following our feelings, we can find a way to find out either how to clear those energies or how to modify the course that we want to take, how to modify the actions that we want to take so that we can go flowing. So after awareness, after we become aware that we have these things within us and we take responsibility for our life right now, we can then choose to find some tools, find some techniques, find some practices to start clearing it. Because one thing that I think I learned in my experience was waiting for something to happen, waiting for getting something, waiting for a relationship, waiting for their job, waiting for a promotion, waiting until you're gonna be older, waiting until you're gonna move to another town, or you're gonna have a better friend, or I'm gonna lose some weight. Waiting for any of that doesn't really help. What helps is understanding that, okay, I am here now with this problem, and what I have right now is what I have. And what do I do with what I have right now? So some tools and techniques might not be accessible to everybody, and it depends on, I guess, your openness. Some of them are very diverse and requires lots of open-mindedness, but there are a number of them that are really good, very nice, and are usable for anybody. Awareness is the first step. So, like even going into meditation, or even if you don't like meditation and don't like all of these things that are attached to meditation, even kind of like dedicating yourself time for self-reflection, or just time to be quiet and being in your space, is a good place to start. Other techniques and tools are more complex, and lots of them you can actually just buy a book and learn. I am using Completion Process by Teal Swan, and I'm using also Metaphysical Anatomy Technique by Everett Rose, and then I'm also teaching Metaphysical Anatomy Technique, how to go into your body, how to find where you have these emotional charges, how they are connected with your instinctual responses, and how to clear it for yourself and for other people. So if you're interested, you can look below. I'm going to put some links, and you can sign up for the course coming up, or you can send me some messages. But even without that, there are plenty of other things that you can find where you can learn how to actually start to know yourself, and to know yourself not from the perspective where you think, okay, I'm Ruta and I am like this, like this, like this. Because I used to love ego, then I was rejecting ego, and now I'm saying we need to be friends with our ego. So, but most of our ego selves, they only like to identify with the great and glamorous and wonderful qualities that has good reputation in society. For example, I can say I am Ruta. I'm identifying myself with being professional, with being sincere, with being honest, with being with the good intentions, with being caring, and I don't really want to associate myself with being weak, with being very sensitive, with being vulnerable. But in reality, those are also parts of me, so I also have that thing in me. So, and once I start accepting that, well, actually, yeah, I am those things, but also I'm also those things, then I can start to see why in my life I attract circumstances, why I pushed in a situation, why I'm very emotional and sensitive, is to recognize my sensitivity, where I am, why I am put in the situations constantly where I am in a very vulnerable position, and I can choose to be hard or to be vulnerable. Okay, it's for me to see the part of me which is very vulnerable. Or I've forgotten what was the other quality. For example, weak. Weak as in, and weak is also a very interesting quality to talk about as well, because we identify strong with good, weak with bad. And what do we call strong? Strong is somebody who is able to go forward, do things, not to break down, always kind of keep your composure and everything. And weak is you're affected, you're crying, you need lots of rest to have energy, or you're not able to kind of like go out there and to battle things out. So, but now, like, as I'm going through process of understanding myself, of getting to know myself, I can also start changing definitions about, okay, so is it really weak, or is actually being empathetic, connected, attuned? So basically, in the process of getting to know yourself, you get to know your other side, the one that you might not identify yourself with, but the one that is causing lots of things in your life. And once we start seeing that, yes, I have this side, but I also have this other side, then lots of things that are happening in our lives start to make sense. We start to understand why we are attracting certain situations in our lives. We start to understand why we cannot go over this hurdle, because it would mean we would absolutely ignore that part, or that part and that part, and this is also part of our personalities. I think I'm going to do another live on personality. But yeah, so basically this was, I usually do topics in the Q&A format. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments below. But I actually decided, I also had a bit of fear of going live. But after I've done some webinars and teaching, I thought, okay, life is not much different than that. It's just kind of like going there and being seen, and then just sharing from your heart about whatever you feel drawn to share. So I will be doing more lives coming up, probably on a bi-weekly basis or maybe even on a weekly basis. And I would love to hear from you. What are you struggling the most with? What are your problems? What are the things in your life which you cannot figure out why it keeps on happening? And if you pose those questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And if I will see any trends, I will do also the whole live on the topic. So if you wanted to know more, or if you wanted also attend my training or a book a session with me, please go to www.rutakact. So it's RUTAKACT.com and check it out. So thank you for your attention. Present, future, and the past after this. I wish you to have a wonderful end of Sunday evening. And if you have any insights, anything you want to share, anything you want to ask, feel free to do so. Thank you for your attention. I enjoy doing this, so I will be doing more than once in 3 months. And I hope to see you online next time as well. Bye.